There's a research lab that can predict a marital success, and they're 100% accurate. And you know what they measure? The swearing words are directly associated with heart disease. So if you look at the F word and like some of your other, your swear words, I don't need to tell them. I don't need to repeat them. I don't want to have heart disease. Resilience is our ability to bounce back. People can be trained to be resilient and be able to bounce back. Normalizing setbacks is how we become resilient.
Welcome to the Pretty Sister Podcast. I'm your host, Callie Stoyer, and so glad that you're here today. This is a place of belonging, friendship, sisterhood, fun, all good things, and we're going to have a great time today, especially because we have my favorite person, my favorite wonderful, beautiful, pretty sister, Rebecca Hintze, here again today. You've heard from her before. You get to hear from her again. It's my privilege to have her in town visiting. And we're going to talk, this is going to be get ready for a lot of emotions mentoring. She is the emotions mentor expert. That's actually the name of her certification course program. And she knows all things emotions. And I asked her, as we are ending this year of 2024 and getting ready to go into a new year, which I think is always exciting and fun to start off a new year with new goals, new dreams, new beginnings. But we also have to resolve the end and what you, like your mindset and what you think and believe about the year that we've just had. And Becky has some really great ways to do that. She's an expert on resilience. And with her thoughts about that and how we can end our year and begin our year in the right frame of mind, I think will be invaluable to you. So get ready, take a listen, and I'm going to ask Becky to share with us.
Oh gosh, I guess a broad topic. So I think let's talk a bit about resilience and what resilience is. Resilience is our ability to bounce back. So think of a rubber band that gets tension, you can pull it, but through all that tension, it comes back to a place of stability. And that concept is so important in our life right now because we all are facing a lot of resistance, a lot of pull. And we may feel like it's pulling so tight, it's going to break.
Yeah.
And a lot of people feel like it's broken, but we can bounce back. And that is what the research tells us, is that people can be trained to be resilient and be able to bounce back. So I think in the context of this conversation, as we're looking at moving into the new year, it's good to talk about resilience from the perspective that we want to bounce back to whatever goals we had for last year, where we wanted to go, the dreams that we had that we seemed to start out with so well at the first of the year. And then the resistance happens and the pull and the hardship and the trials kind of show up. And then we kind of feel like we lose our ground. So maybe we take this conversation and talk about resilience in terms of the new year. What do you think?
Yes. Well, I love that. And I love, I'm just thinking myself, and I think probably some of our listeners included, sometimes we can get to the end of the year and maybe feel, there's a little bit of I'm tired, we rest, we relax over the holidays, and maybe there could be some disappointments over there's a lot of thoughts, right? You can be super proud of what you've accomplished. You could be disappointed over what you haven't accomplished or what has happened. What do you say, I guess, what do we do with all of that emotion, with those thoughts that are there?
Yeah.
Like, how do we
do it?
Wrap those up, or what's some strategies? I know you have so many good strategies on how to process your emotions. Mm-hmm. So before we totally move into next year, give us some insights on what do we do with what we're possibly feeling right now to prepare to dream and get going into next year. So we're heading into that properly.
Yeah. I think it's always a good idea at the end of the year to reflect on your past year and to look at your wins and to see what did work for you. I think it is a bit of human nature and also a bit of a negativity bias that we kind of tend to all have, to look over our year and think of the things that we didn't get done.
Yeah.
To find the gaps. And part of resilience is being able to focus on what's working and not what isn't working. And that is one of the ways that we create resilience in our life. So let's just take a moment for a minute. Maybe even you and I, like look back in our life. And so some things to do and to not to do. So some suggestions, okay?
Yes.
Let's go back over our year and look for some things that went really well and why. Let's like 3 things. Let's do the 3 things exercise.
I love this because this reminds me of how even if I've gone throughout the day and done some things, I sometimes will go back and write on a piece of paper what I did and then cross it out. Just because I like that satisfaction of like the pat on the back that I'm giving myself. And so it feels like I'm doing that. Like, okay, let's go back and look at the things I did so that I can get some credit. And that's healthy to give yourself the credit for what you've accomplished.
Yeah.
Okay. So you want 3 things that I'm kind of proud of.
Yeah. Well, 3 things that went well for you this year and why. Yeah. 3 things that you can pull out of your year.
Okay. Well, an obvious one for me, and you probably you're smiling already because you probably
I know what you're going to say.
We're actually sitting in this little pool house / studio that I created this year. That's it. You know, if I could take you with me to look out the window, it's next
snowing too right now. It's so pretty all around us.
Yes, it's beautiful. It's magical. We call it Callie's Kingdom because it's just like my new place to dwell. And I love it. And it was a dream that I had, you know, to transform my just backyard that was grass, that was the dog house, really. I mean, just the dogs enjoyed our backyard. But now it's transformed into this beautiful kingdom that I enjoy. And that was a big dream come true for me. It took a lot of work and a lot of imagination and a lot of money and sacrifice, all the things. But now I'm enjoying it.
That's awesome.
That was a big one.
I figured out my whole research project that I'm doing for my PhD, like completion. So that was wobbly all year long. It was a bit of a hair-pulling experience because it was looking like we were going to go one direction or another, but we have it all firmed up. And so I'm excited about that.
Which is very exciting because it's actually been something that's been in the works for probably 10 years.
Yes.
Been back and forth living in London, and do I do it? Do I not do it? Why do I do it?
Exactly.
Should I do it?
And
I really want to do it. It's so much work.
Yeah, but I feel like every time at the end of the year, like the dreams that I had and what I wanted to accomplish, that was always top of the list, is to just kind of, you know, tap that bell and get this research project done. So, and I love what I'm doing. It's different than any other time because I love the focus of the research project and the way it's going. So, which actually has a lot to do with resilience. So I love that.
If had you done it earlier when you were trying to, it wouldn't have come together the way it has. Like the same mentors, the same research focus that you've come to do now. So I think the lesson in that is it's okay when things don't happen and unfold exactly in the timing that we're planning, because when you trust that it will unfold perfectly in the right divine timing for you, then it has a way of doing that. And sometimes we just have to be patient. Okay.
For sure.
So I thought of another one that I'm very proud of, and that is that I started this podcast.
I was thinking that. Yes. I thought you were going to say that one.
The first one you thought
I thought, oh, it's going to be the podcast, because podcast is a great one.
Yes. I had been thinking about this for years and just kicking it down the road, and you come up with reasons why you shouldn't or can't, or the timing's not right. But finally, it was a goal of mine to just start. And I didn't have the right equipment and it's been a work in process. I've changed and upgraded things over time as I'm figuring out. I've endured my kids telling me, oh, Mom, the lighting's not right, the whatever's not right. And then I freeze. I'm like, oh, I should just stop. And then it's like, no, I just should figure it out. And that's what they say. Chase recently was like, Mom, just stop and figure it out. I'm like, okay, I'll stop and figure it out. But not stop altogether.
The dream,
right? Like just tweak. He's like, just tweak what you're doing, and that's it. Takes confidence or probably some resilience, because I've had some setbacks with it, and courage. All the things that you have to overcome when you're starting something new that you don't know how to do, and you feel inadequate to do it. And so I've been going through all of these hurdles and obstacles and just trusting that, if one person is listening and it helps one person, then that's worth it to me. So I've just been moving forward doing it.
I love it.
And it feels good to now be at the end of the year. And I'm like, oh, I've got several podcasts under my belt, and we'll see what next year brings.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to point out too, when it comes to resilience, that you said a key thing, which is the setback part.
Yes.
So I think normalizing setbacks is how we become resilient. Actually, I don't even think that. It's in my research. I'm not the smart one who thought of that. There are a lot of researchers who study that. So yes, normalizing your hardships and your setbacks is part of resilience. So think about that, because if you are doing this exercise with us, which we want you to do, or do it after you watch the podcast, but it'd be great for you right now to just in your mind, be thinking, what are the 3 things that went well for me this year and why? One of the reasons, so you said what went well was the podcast, but the reason it's gone well is because you worked through the setbacks. Right. So everyone has setbacks. That's the normalizing of setbacks. And then your patience with your setbacks is what makes you resilient.
And also, I think your perspective of the word well, like you said, the reason
everyone has setbacks. That's the normalizing of setbacks. And then your patience with your setbacks is what makes you resilient.
And I can feel totally defeated and like, this isn't happening or this isn't working. But then if I am looking at like, I wanted to start and I've started, then it went well. You know what I mean? Like you can totally change the way you're looking at it and change that expectation and perspective of it to make it satisfactory.
Which is why normalizing the setbacks is important. Because if you notice, I gave my thing that went well, and I also said it was there were a lot of setbacks all year long. So resilience was me surviving the setbacks and continuing forward and accepting that process. And that's why it went well. You also working on the lake house, there were issues. It didn't just like appear. I know, I'm not the lake house. I'm sorry. This pool house.
Yes.
This pool house appeared through normal setbacks that occur, right? It just isn't you just don't blink your eyes. And although we all want to be IG Martini, I really want to be here really bad.
Yes.
Especially on the travel part. I want to blink my eyes and be somewhere else instead of have to get on a plane and go there. But that's not what happens. There's a whole process in the middle. And anytime you have success in anything, there are these setbacks that occur, and you have to be able to normalize that process of and get through it.
And I think what just came to mind as you said that comment about the travel, if we can, again, it's shifting our perspective and put some gratitude in there, we can change the way we're thinking about something. Here's the example I thought of, because you said, I would love to just blink my eyes and be like, you're headed to London soon. Be there and not have to get on this long flight and change the time and all the adjustments that has to come.
The jet lag.
And we can think of that as, oh, what a drag. Or we can think, gosh, isn't it amazing that we can jump on a flight and be there in 7 hours and not have to get in a boat and cross it for 3 weeks?
That's true.
Do you know what I mean? Like you can just, at any point in time, if we want to complain about something or feel like it's hard, we can actually be grateful for the way we get to do it now and look in reverse and like, well, at least we don't have to do it that way. At least I don't have to walk across the country, whatever.
Yeah. I will say, because you're absolutely right. And that is how resilience works. And if you look at the famous Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, and you probably have all know who he is, all of you. But if you're young, you may not. He was an Austrian psychologist who found himself in the concentration camp. And he got through it through that exact kind of thinking, where he looked at the situation that he was in, and instead of perceiving it as, woe is me, I'm in a concentration camp, people are trying to kill me, I could die, I'm freezing to death, life is miserable. He made it a game, and he basically tried to find benefits and positivity throughout it, and it caused his mindset caused him to survive, literally caused him to survive. And so that is the perfect example of resilience. But there's also a bit of psychology around why it's okay to feel your setbacks, to sit in it and know that it didn't work out, and you're sad and you're stressed and it's hard. And so it's a kind of a tag game you play, because you're sort of in this place of normalizing setbacks, like, okay, they exist for everyone. Everyone's going through it as part of the process of success. So that's the normalization part of it. There's also the fact that you have to allow your body to go through it. And your body doesn't always keep up with your mind. So your body can feel the stress of things. Your body can feel the sadness and the anger and the disappointment and all the other emotions that we feel. And our head wants to power by. It always wants to power past because it doesn't love to feel all those things. And if you're a person who's very ambitious and wanting to get stuff done, it's also time consuming to take a minute and to feel it and to let it go. But honestly, feeling it and letting it go is part of the resilience. And that is manifested through the research done in mindfulness, and why mindfulness and meditation becomes a really powerful tool to increase your ability to be resilient, because your mind may want to be resilient, but your body may be about 10 steps behind or 100 steps behind. And so the mindfulness bridges that gap. And it's that time when you can meditate and you can feel the feelings, you can acknowledge that they exist, you don't judge them, you're in them, and they can kind of dissipate and they can go away at that point. But when we are always powering past and positivity and we don't allow that to happen, that could actually create a deeper setback. And a lot of times those deeper setbacks are felt in physical problems. The body takes the toll. It's the body keeps score, is the book. One of the New York Times bestselling books says the body does keep score. And so you've got to be all in with your body as well, for any kind of resilience, because you can get through it with your mind, but your body definitely can fall apart, and that will cause you to crash, because we're all, it's a whole full package deal.
Well, I think what came to mind as you were saying that is that if we don't feel all the things that we need to feel, we're skipping the part of learning the lessons that we need to learn. There's so much learning and growth. And then when we try again, we're doing it differently. It's like how Chase said, well, don't just keep doing it the same way if you're not getting the results you want. Stop, pause, learn something, tweak it, and then keep going. And that was
wise.
It was wise. It hurt my feelings at the time a little bit. I was, you don't like to be told you're doing it wrong by your son. Yeah. Actually, they know so much more than me about this technology and stuff. But yes, I tweaked it. I stopped. I paused. I swallowed the pill, and then I started again a little bit better. So we've got to learn the lessons and feel all the feelings and go through all of that. A little teaser for next week is I'm having an expert on meditation and mindfulness.
Oh, good.
Come on the podcast and teach us how we can incorporate that as a tool in our, on our tool belt for next year, because it is so important that we do that and meditate. And I've been doing her meditations all fall, and it's been fabulous. So I'm so excited to share her with you guys. Yeah. So you'll want to stay tuned for that.
You will, because my practice teach people that there are 3 really good neural hacks you can use in your life for resilience and also just for top performance. And one is nutrition, which is taking care of the body, is so key, because your body is the vehicle that drives you where you want to go. So you've got to really, pay attention there. Yeah. The second is exercise, which again comes back to the body, but that changes the game. And the third is mindfulness, meditation. And I'm giving this to you off of the research. Like, if you're looking for the top neural hacks to change your life, those are the 3. I mean, what will make you the happiest are your relationships, but all of those neural hacks can help you with those relationships too. So just a little side note. So basically, bottom line, tune in next week because you want to know about the mindfulness for sure.
Yes. And all of those things take some effort. So sorry. I mean, they take some work. Those, to have a really healthy body, happy life, success, all of those things. We want to sometimes just blink our eyes and have it all. But to eat well, to exercise, to do the mindfulness, you've got to schedule time for it. You've got to plan for it. You've got to put in some effort for it. So not everything happens just like that. I mean, most things don't.
Well, you don't have to be healthy to do those things. In fact, most people aren't and need to do those things. Like, if you're like the rest of us, if you're aging, whatever, it's just, those are staples for life.
Yeah.
I want to circle back to something. So homework assignment, we won't finish doing our 3 things. Let's stop and let you do it.
I did think of my third.
Oh, well, go ahead. Do your third. Do your third.
Okay, I worked on my book this year.
Oh, you did?
I did. I know. It's something I've been wanting to do all year, many years. And finally, I took the year and I wrote the book about Pretty Sisters, the story of this name and this sisterhood that we grew up living in. I wrote down, I'm excited for you to read it.
I want to.
Just to see, because I tried to put words to, like, why did we write the pledge? Why did we come up with the tribute concept? Why was this necessary and what does this mean? And so it's kind of like my thoughts, my growing up, my world in this Pretty Sisters book. It's Think Like a Pretty Sister. And I'm in the editing, like, final stages of it as we wrap up this year, because my goal was to do it this year. And I don't know how long it then will take to come out. But anyway,
Callie,
it's coming.
3 good things: your pool house, your podcast, and your book. Congratulations.
I know. It does feel okay. Yes. It feels so good to, like, take a minute.
It does, doesn't it?
And think about it, because if we don't stop and pause and congratulate ourselves for what we've done and the hard work we've accomplished, like, now I'm feeling, okay, so just if I explain what I'm feeling right now, having had to think through those things, because I didn't know you were going to ask me that. Now it's like, oh, I can do stuff. So now my mind is like, okay, I did some things, hard things, and now I'm ready to think about what I want to do next year.
Yeah.
Okay, we're primed.
So,
you're primed. Okay, so you should be doing this. So you're primed too.
So I want to tell all of you that is not just a pull it out of the hat suggestion for the podcast. That is a very well-researched technique to instill resilience in your life. And you can do this on a daily basis. It's called the 3 good things. You can actually Google it. It's research that's been conducted across populations and age groups and languages and whatnot. And it works. It works because what happens is, we all tend to have negativity bias in our life. We're wired that way as humans. So we think negatively, and honestly, positivity, like, as much positivity as you can dose into your life will probably never outweigh your tendency to be negative.
So it's okay that I'm always trying to tell people to be positive. Like, don't get sick of me. Because you need
don't get sick of her.
Because there's so many negative things that are there as the default. Which we're wired that way because our brains are wired to protect ourselves for survival, right? I mean, so
yes, exactly.
We're wired to think that way.
Exactly. And I think it's so interesting that there's a research lab that can predict a marital success 100%. They've had 100% success rate, and they have a video process that they go through and they record and observe your relationship with your spouse. And then they come back and tell you if your marriage is going to work or not. And they're 100% accurate. And you know what they measure?
Well, I know the answer. Do you want me to?
Do you know the answer? Yeah. Do you know this?
Isn't it like the
kindness is the number one ingredient in a happy family, and small acts of kindness and charity absolutely are it. So there's research on that too. But what they're looking for is a statistic. It's a math equation of the number of kind and positive remarks said to one another versus the negative. And so it's a mathematical formula they use, and that's how they predict it.
That's why my marriage has lasted.
There you go.
So much work I put into
so many kind things you've been saying all these years, and you won the math formula.
It's hard.
I think it's interesting though, because people who are negative and say negative things on a regular basis will not probably make it in their marriage and other relationships. But not only that, and I wasn't even going to bring up all this research, but I think it's fascinating that there's also this, I think is incredibly fascinating. So this research was done by a team looking at words and language and positivity and heart disease and the crossover. And they did this massive study where they went in and looked at the internet and pulled messaging. So they ran an algorithm through your social media channels and looked at word tracks and predicted heart disease per region of the world with 100% accuracy based off of language of what was posted on the internet.
Wow. And that is why we have the word. No,
yes, exactly.
Why, but look, we have the word love here. Words matter in language.
Words matter, which also, sorry, but the swearing words are directly associated with heart disease. So if you look at the F word and like some of your other, your swear words, I don't need to tell them. I don't need to repeat them. I don't want to have heart disease. No, people who use them are more prone to heart disease. And so
they're expressing anger and frustration is what comes with those words. That's when you use them, unless you just have a potty mouth and use it as an adjective. But
But even
mostly it's
still,
with
the
anger,
negative words,
frustration,
yeah.
negativity.
So your language is definitive of what you're thinking and feeling on the inside. And when you project that, that is another level of communication that impacts those who are around you, by the way. And it can predict your health outcomes, and it can predict heart disease in the region that you live in. So if you're on the internet and you're posting a lot of negative things. And so the opposite was true too. So if words were posted like love and charity and kindness, like well,
encouraging people,
encouraging,
if
yeah.
you're the one posting those encouraging
If you're the ones,
posts,
yes, then you,
hurting
yes,
stuff.
exactly. So basically, when I talk about region, what I mean is like, let's take, and I'll give you one of the regions that didn't score very well, which was the New York, New Jersey area outside of the New York City area. So they have a statistic of what is their probability for heart disease based upon their region and the people who live in that population. So measuring the words that people used, whether they were negative or positive, when it all pulled back up, matched that statistic perfectly.
Wow. So that edginess of like honking and aggressive driving and things you kind of think of New York City life, there's actually some negative health factors that can be shown.
Yeah. And that's
super interesting.
Kind of, podcast is going all over the place, but we're bringing in some social psychology here too, because there's this collective consciousness in the area in which you live, where the words you use and the way you behave, we pick it up because we're creatures who want to be accepted by one another. So we tend to pick up word tracks and dress the same and act the same in the area that we live. And so that's why when you pop into an area of the world, you may feel like, oh, I love the vibe of the city, or I don't like the vibe of the city, or I really fit in, or I really don't fit in. And you probably know what I'm talking about if you've done any traveling. And so what you're picking up is that kind of nonverbal vibe. Well, think about it. Nonverbal words you feel inside, words you put outside. It all kind of, comes together to represent something. And I think the message that we take from it is what really matters, which is that this word right here, love, the more that we are engaged in loving thoughts and kindness, and that has to come back to us. So I want to kind of bring back resilience to what goes on inside of here. So there's some things that are important that you need to do coming into your new year. You need to be patient with yourself and really loving towards you. And so another really great exercise would be if you know somebody who's having a really hard time, and imagine writing a letter to them. Just right now, think about that. Think of somebody in your life who is having a really hard time. And you were to write a letter, kind of think of some of the words that you would use right now. Like, you don't have to say them, but like, think about the encouraging words that you would say. Okay. Now, and you can do the same. And now stop for a minute and think, you're having a really hard time and you were to write a letter to yourself. What kind, would you use the same words?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would hope so, that you would be as kind to yourself as you would to others. So that self-love is so important.
Yes, it is. And I know this and I teach it, but I will tell you, I have been honest and done this exercise, and I am harder on myself than I am on other people. And in fact, I found myself and I honestly did this exercise just recently. So, and I just did it exactly the way that they asked me to do it without a bias. And I came back and noticed, yes, I have a lot of shoulds, a lot of, you could have done better kind of thinking. There are a lot of reasons why I felt like I should have done better in certain circumstances. We do this as humans, but we don't do it with our friends. We do it for ourselves. And so this sense of self-love and acceptance is really important. So when you look back over your past year, I don't want you to look at it in the way that you might judge yourself, but rather maybe a friend would, your best friend, looking back and saying, good job. Yeah. Good job, Callie. Woo. Approach your year with that kind of self-love and self-acceptance, because that is part of what creates resilience, that bounce back of the rubber band. We need to be able to identify the things that are going well. We need to have that sense of self-value and self-love. We don't want to be in the woulda, shoulda, coulda, and we don't want to use a lot of cognitive biases, like when we are like have all or nothing thinking, where we look back over the year and we think, I did nothing right the entire year.
Right.
Nothing worked out for me. That's all or nothing thinking. That is a cognitive bias. You don't want to fall into that trap. Or catastrophizing for the new year. That's another cognitive bias, where you're looking at your new year thinking, surely World War III. I mean, it kind of looks that way when you watch the news, but surely I won't even have a house
because it's not even worth it, because everything's going fail. And
my political candidate wasn't selected this year, therefore the economy will crash. Now that's catastrophizing. And that is a cognitive bias. These are things that get worked out in therapy. When you come out and address these biases, and you want to address them because they impact your ability to be resilient moving forward. We can go through more, but I think that's probably enough therapy for the podcast. Yeah. I don't know, unless you want more.
No, I think that's great. I was thinking as you were saying that oftentimes in school, I remember teachers will say, grade yourself, because probably studies have shown that you'll be harder on yourself often than teachers would when they ask you to grade yourself. So that's another example where that shows up to be true, what you were saying. Okay.
Yeah.
Super fascinating. I love that. Now, let's go ahead and pivot, and just as we start to wrap this up, let's give some advice now for the new year. And we'll be talking about, I love the new year because I'm a goal setter and I love to dream. It's like one of my favorite things. And the new year is just that perfect time to come up with goals and words and, ideas that you want for the new year. So we'll talk about that in a few, all of January probably, but get us ready for it. Like, let's get us started for that.
So I have a new homework assignment now. There's a lot from this podcast. Don't forget them either. They're good. So do them all. This one is great. This is answering this question: what is the best case possible outcome for your new year? And you can draw it, you can color it, you can make a poster around it. It's a little different than a vision board. A vision board is, you dreaming, but this is a looking at your year and thinking, what is the best case outcome in my 2025? And defining that and really lining it, underscoring what it looks like. And it works so well. Let me just tell you that it gives you a what we call perspection, and gives you a chance to move your mind into what is going to work and what will work, not what hasn't worked or what has failed for you in the past. So it's a great exercise, and you can marry with a vision board, that's fine, but best case outcome for your 2025, what would it look like if everything went your way in the current circumstances that you're in with the goals that you have? What does that look like? And define it and do that before you start all your goal setting. It'll really help you to be in the right mindset.
Okay. Yeah. I love that. That's a great piece of, a great task to spend some time on. My mind's already starting to think about what would that look like for me. So,
and that too, let me just say, that is another very well-researched exercise. So the exercises that you've been given in this podcast are all scientifically, academically shown to work for your best mental health and resilience.
You can trust us to give you the good stuff. All good things for our pretty sisters.
That's right.
Okay. Thank you so much, Becky, for being here, for taking the time to do this with us, because I'm feeling good.
Good.
And I want all of you to do these exercises. So let's just recap. The first one is for you to think about the 3 things that have gone well for you this year and why.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you're going to do that first, and you're going to get into that mindset of, wow, I can do things. Like, I've gotten things done. And no matter how big or small, I promise you that if you take the time, you're going to be able to find 3 things. If you want to find more, right? But you can find at least 3 things that you've accomplished and why that felt good for you this year. And then after you've done that, you're going to think about next year. What is the best case outcome, right?
Best case possible outcome.
Yeah, the best possible outcome for you next year. Just kind of, it's a bigger general idea and question. And then, as I promised, over January, we're going to give you more steps and tools as we break that down for you, so that you are set up for so much success in 2025. It's going to be an amazing year. And this year has been an amazing year. It's all in the way you look at it and the way you perceive it. So maybe make a choice now to just reframe this past year as one that has been good, for your growth. And if hard things have happened, that I will propose has been good for your growth, and learn the things that you need to learn and be able to take that forward into your next year as you're going to create another fabulous year on your road to success and happiness as Pretty Sisters. So again, thank you so much for being here. All of you, thank you for listening, for joining with us. It's been a fun afternoon or morning or evening. I don't know when you're listening to this, but it's our pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much, and stay pretty, and we'll see you next week.